So, action research in the school library. So, this is a question and answer session, but I do just want to take a couple of moments to share why this is so important for the SLA, and also, a little bit for me personally. So, I don't know if you are all SLA members or if some of you aren't, but you may know that this year is the SLA's 85th anniversary, which we are very excited about. And coincidentally, this year also sees us launch our new 5-year strategy. So we're kind of transitioning into that at the moment, but it really lays out kind of where we want to be over the next 5 years and what we want to achieve. And I think that's a really important backdrop for some of the conversations that hopefully we will be having a little bit later on. So I just wanted to share some of that with you. Okay. So we have some quite big objectives over the next 5 years, and they are kind of very roughly summed up in these 5 areas. So strong partnerships is really important to us. We're really proud of the partnerships we have. I'm really incredibly proud of the sector in which we work. And we really want to build on those even more over the next 5 years and make sure that we are providing everyone with an opportunity to support school libraries and to celebrate school libraries as much as they want to. For this one is the working across the partners working with partners across the sector that is particularly relevant for us this afternoon. In this category, obviously, membership is absolutely at the core and central to what we do. We have a number of headline objectives within this overall strand. But for this afternoon, it's the spotlighting the pupil voice that is particularly relevant to us. Digital and physical educational resources, absolutely kind of central to what we do. But how can we kind of build on this over the next few years and make sure that SLA members have all the support that they need and want in this area? And it's this idea around digital and media literacies and the knowledge that we can build from that. Active advocacy. I don't think I need to tell any of you how important advocacy is for the sector. It is one of the challenges of working within school libraries, that sometimes they are not utilised as well as they could be, not celebrated as much as they should be, and not seen, I would suggest, as much as other parts of education. So we really want to make sure that we're playing a kind of key role in advocacy and in making sure that everyone knows what they're talking about when it comes to school libraries. And there are 2 areas today. So firstly, the Great School Library campaign, which has built up a fantastic bank of case studies. And then also our aim to link to teaching and librarian courses. So the aim here is twofold. So firstly, linking to trainee teacher courses to show what school libraries can provide and how they can support trainee teachers. And then also to librarian courses to show that being a school librarian is a vibrant and engaging and wonderful career choice. Has its challenges, obviously, but all career paths do. So just making sure that there is a proper kind of understanding of all of the wonderful elements to school librarianship, as well as some of the challenges. And then new research is a whole strand in itself. And it won't surprise you that this is a really key part of the backdrop to our conversation and to this session, because we really feel that the lack of research into the benefits of school libraries and also what happens in school libraries within the UK, but within England particularly, is a real challenge, because it means that there's not the same kind of coverage of school librarianship as there is in other parts of the world, and not the same coverage of school librarianship as there are in other parts of the school. So actually, how are teachers supposed to find out what school libraries can do if they're only talking to other teachers who also don't know very much potentially about the potential of school libraries? So it is our aim over the next 5 years to train school library staff to carry out research, focus groups, action research, and other research activity for a multitude of reasons. So Tanya has just put in the chat, hi Tanya, working in secondary schools for about 8 years, just finishing my master's in education. Fantastic. Research project is linked to my job, which is why you're interested. Tanya, that sounds amazing. I definitely want to know more. Started a new role in September, really interested in promoting the library. Fantastic. So I think it's basically an element that runs throughout our next 5-year strategy. And fundamentally, we have some core priorities, and these are around building a community of members. And we have that already, but kind of seeing what else we can do to support members so that there is a feeling of unity. And so that feeling of isolation that people can sometimes face isn't there. Raising the profile and benefits so that everyone knows what they are. I think it's so key that when people are talking about the benefits of school libraries, they're thinking about it in the most rounded and complete sense, because it means that when they're told that a school doesn't have one, they feel the loss in its most rounded and complete way. Rather than just being like, oh, that's sad, they can no longer use that space, or it's not so bad, they'll just separate the books out amongst the classroom. A school library is this wonderful thing that kind of embodies so many other elements, and that can be so central to education. So we really need to be putting that at the forefront of what we're talking about. And then that will really help us to support senior school leaders, governors, parents, teachers, trust leadership, the mainstream media, everyone kind of in the widest sense, to really understand and support school libraries to be that kind of that joined up vision that we could have around education in this country. And then we also want to make sure that there are plenty of opportunities for school library staff to showcase their work. We do want to support teachers to embed reading and research within the curriculum. And then also, providing the training and networking and tools for people working in school libraries is just such a fundamental part of what we do. So that's like a really quick whistle-stop tour of our kind of new strategy and our priorities over the next 5 years. And I hope that you can see how kind of research really is this kind of constant. It has there is a possibility to change how people think about school libraries, but that's not going to happen very easily. And so it is about empowerment, but it's also about claiming something for ourselves. There have been a couple of instances recently where I've really been reminded of the fact that sometimes an invitation can be extended but not delivered. And I think it's that element of us assuming that we're not invited to the table. And so we kind of automatically exclude ourselves because we assume it's not relevant to us, because of our situation or because of our context or because we're support staff, not teacher, or for many, many reasons. And it's a complicated thing. But I think we really as a sector want to and need to start taking ownership of our stories and making sure that we're the ones that tell them. So it's one of the things that I see happen quite a lot on social media, where a teacher says, oh, here's this book list, it's brilliant. And then lots of people, chime in and go, oh, don't you have a school librarian to do that? And I think it's one of the dynamics that we live within, that there is a bit of friction potentially between teachers and school librarians. But I think we need to get out there with the stories of what we're doing. And we really need to support research bodies and research organisations to carry out their own research. And that's something that SLA is looking into. But it needs to be part of that wider discussion, so that people who are going into kind of masters and PhDs and who are interested in education can find information about school libraries and build that into their narrative, as well as us telling our own stories. I really want kind of school libraries to be able to bridge this gap that sometimes exists between education and school librarianship. So one of the ways that we can do that is by making sure that we are telling our own stories and that we are producing our own kind of research and contributing to the body of work that's out there. And there is a huge ongoing movement in education around the importance of research, and it is so vital for so many institutions. You know, that what happens in schools is evidence-based and it's research-based. And I really feel strongly that school librarians should be a part of that movement too. I mean, it links so well to what most of us are doing in terms of trying to equip children with the skills to kind of think about their own skill sets and the growth mindset, but also around but also, you know, some of us are teaching children how to do their own research. And so isn't it good for us to feel how that feels too, so that we can kind of do it from both points of view? And Tanya's just said, you know, there's very little literature available regarding school libraries, and most of it is about reading, not how the library can support reading. Absolutely. And I think, you know, that's one of the things that we need to change, because we're not very visible when it comes to, you know, solutions for problems. So if we can start kind of telling our own story and sharing what we're doing and doing it in a way that means that it's kind of consistent and measurable, then that body will grow. It's going to take time, you know. I'm not sure 5 years will be enough, but I think it's a big aim that we need to be willing to work towards. So what is action research? So this is a definition that I really like. And I think that it's really important that we understand that there are certain terms that can be really off-putting. So case study, I think, is one. Research is another. They sound very, very formal and almost like they need to be done by someone at kind of, you know, professor level or beyond. But there is value and there is purpose and meaning in doing research which is based in a particular context. So action research is exactly that. So it's practitioners investigating their own kind of context and then using what they find out to make improvements. So, and I think it links really nicely to, you know, the kind of professional development element of reflective thinking. You know, it's thinking about what you're doing and finding out how or if it could be better. And it means that we are going to be kind of constantly learning for ourselves, making sure that what we do is impactful in achieving the things that we want it to achieve. But it's also a really nice way of kind of building further links with colleagues, so that colleagues can have these conversations between themselves and you can kind of share your learnings with other people. And they might say, you know, that worked in your context. My context is a bit different. And that's fine, because it is context dependent. Nearly everything is. But it gives a starting point, and there will be someone out there whose context is similar enough for it to work. So this idea of action research, you know, it can sound quite formal and scary, but actually it's doing the research, reflecting on what you're doing, thinking about it, and then seeing what adaptations you can make or what the impact is if you make changes. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, obviously this is, a big thing for the SLA. It's something that we really want to do and we really want to support members to do. But it is also a little bit personal for me, because I did some action research. I took place in a kind of training program for teachers that was an action research program, and it was fantastic. It really exposed me to a wide variety of research and really built up my knowledge in a lot of different ways. It also had the impact of making colleagues look at me slightly differently in terms of teaching colleagues. But most importantly, at the end, I had the chance to kind of write up my findings and to do a bit of an article. And that went to loads of schools in the county. And because it was, it was teaching focused, it went to loads of teachers. And I think that element of that advocacy and actually saying, this is an example of what a school library can do in this point in time, can be absolutely so powerful. And I think there's lots of different ways. So sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming to think, actually, what could I do? That sounds like a big project. And sometimes it can be. So it could be, implementing a new reading program, or it could be, what's the impact of an information literacy day? But it could also be kind of slightly smaller things that are really kind of central to what you do. So it could be about behavioural economics, so how you change the layout of the library and the impact that has on behaviour. It could be which, might enable people to read different genres because they're in a different place and they find them more easily. It could be about the response to overdue letters. So, what difference does it make if you kind of phrase them differently, or if they're a different length, or if you send a video instead, or, some of those things. And it could be measuring those that provides the project. Maggie has said, with regard to growth mindset skills and libraries, I've been struck in both this school and my last about the increasing language from teachers in terms of responsibility, self-regulation, organisation, curiosity and discovering, and seeing all of these things and seeing all these as things that the library, through many of our everyday actions, especially as the teachers' discussion appeared to focus on how it can be scaffolded for students. Absolutely. I think there are real opportunities, and I think sometimes in the different languages that we use between kind of teachers and librarianship, those can get missed. But, there are definite kind of opportunities out there, and there is more discussion from teachers around kind of growth mindset or responsibility or skills that set them up for careers. Because some people would say that children aren't going to really need to remember much because they've got their internet at their fingertips. It's going to be the kind of superhuman skills, the softer skills, the things that robots and AI and machine learning can't do. Those are going to be the things that they really need in the future. So it's important that we're delivering those. Rachel's saying that she's working towards chartership at the moment and is learning a lot to reflect a lot more, is opened her eyes to the value of measuring impact, and is learning from projects that I'm doing and the value it's adding. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And it can be. So firstly, I've been in this post for 4 years now, and there isn't a leadership course that I have been on, or a book that I have read, or a podcast I've listened to that hasn't recommended journaling and making sure you're building in time for reflection as a way of getting better. It really helps with the mental load in terms of kind of helping you to process situations or events or, things like that, because you just get it out on the paper and you reflect on it and you write. But this idea of measuring impact is just so important. Like, I can't explain how important it is that we start to be much more vocal about the impact that we have. And, you know, there's lots of ways that we could do that. You know, in the member survey that's coming out in a couple of months, we will be asking SLA members how many books you have loaned over the academic year. Because if we take all of those responses and we add them all up, that's going to be a huge number of books. And then we can go out there and say, school libraries, SLA members have loaned X number of books. And it's going to really show, firstly, how hard everyone is working. Secondly, that kids actually do still read. And thirdly, that we have a real role to play, both in literacy and in the publishing sphere. So that's going to be a question. And that's one of the things that we can do to really kind of take ownership of our own storytelling. Storytelling as a group was with a louder voice. You know, it's going to go further. It's going to be listened to and heard more. And measuring impact is just so important. Like, quite often we can rest on the fact that we see the impact, or that we know it has an impact because of this. But actually, if we can measure that and we can share that and we can say, actually, you know, doing this led to this, it's a much more kind of, maybe commercial way of doing things, but it's absolutely essential for the context in which we're operating at the moment. Every time, you know, I speak to someone who is new to the sector, or a company who, you know, is looking to expand or whatever, like, it's the data they want. They want to know how many school libraries there are. They want to know how many school library staff there are. They want to know how many pupils are using them, how many books are lent. It's our data. It's within our grasp to kind of take that and own that and share that. So I think it's quite important we do that, in case you couldn't tell. So we did run an action research course in COVID. Pre-COVID, I think we can say. And it was really, really positive. So there were a number of people, and I've just put some of the examples of the project titles on your screen, and it really helps to show the kind of breadth of opportunity that there is. So the first one was about, actually, if you have direct contact with students, does that impact on what they borrow and how they use the library? There was one from a primary school around what's the ideal number of books loaned. You know, we all know that loans don't equal reading. That's fine. But is there a kind of ideal number of books? What should school libraries be aiming for? And what's the average? There was loads of nice detail in that. Looking at digital reading platforms. And what was the impact around the different familiarity from different teachers? And is it driven by student interest? Again, a really kind of meaty topic to get stuck into, but something that was very appropriate at the time. And we asked some of the previous delegates what they'd learned. And there was a real range in response. And I've just put two here. One being about the research process, and that is what the action research course does. So it gives you the skills and the scaffolding and the kind of wider context to conduct your own research, so that it's meaningful and it will stand up to kind of people looking at it and reading it and questioning it a little bit. And then I thought this one was really nice because it's about the different values that we put on evidence, and sometimes, again, how we just discount things. So the different ways we can combine evidence. It built their confidence, and they found something that they really enjoyed. And I thought that was a really nice outcome. There were also real benefits for their work. So being able to do more project research for professional development, because once you've got the skills and the knowledge, you can do as many action research projects as you like. You know, you don't have to do it through us all the time. You don't have to do it in any particular way. You've got the scaffolding then to do it as you want to. And then someone else saying it has already, so this was just at the end of the course, saying it had already benefited their work, and gave them grounding for, you know, supporting more students more of the time, which I think is, again, an outcome that we could definitely all aspire to. So we are running an action research training. You can tell. Anyway, action research training. This year, you can tell I got caught and I did this last slide in a bit of a rush, I will admit that, because we have moved the first session, which will be on research topic and context, to May. So it will be taking place in May, and there are 6 sessions altogether. So the idea is we have the first one in the summer term that gives you the kind of the grounding that you need. You then have time to think about it, to reflect on what you want your project to be, maybe to do a bit of reading around that. And then the sessions 2 to 6 will all take place next academic year. So if you don't have something on the go now that you can do an action research project on, that's fine. You don't need to. And it can take place kind of, you know, throughout the autumn term. So there are 6 different sessions. And what I would kind of really love to see at the end of this is a collection of all the different action research that delegates have done. So we can kind of build it into either the weekend course in terms of kind of sharing, or maybe publish our own kind of journal that's just full of the action research from these courses. But that's kind of that outline, so you have an understanding of the different kind of sessions that will be looked at. Just wanted to kind of finish with something that is absolutely central to how I want to run the SLA, which is that it's your association. And it's absolutely vital that we kind of hear your voice and we know what you want. But there are things that we want to achieve that, well, we can't do any of it without you, because SLA members are everything. But there are things that we can't achieve without your kind of action and input as well. And this is one of them. You know, we have spent over 18 months thinking about the challenges that the sector faces and how we can take them on and the change that we can create over the next 5 years. And we've decided that training members to run their own action research projects and to run focus groups and to do all of the, you know, other bits of research is really, really vital. And then obviously sharing that is also equally important, but we can't do it without you. So that brings me to the end of my slideshow. So what I would say is, you know, I'm absolutely here if you've got any questions about research or why we think it's that important or what kind of things you could do. But whether you join us on the action research course this year or next year, or you decide that's not for you or it's not possible for you in your context, do you have a think about some of the learning that you could do, some of the reflection that you could do, some of the ways that we could showcase what's going on and the impact that that you're having? Because I know you are. Like, I see it in the moments of the month, I see it in the emails that are sent to me and the, you know, annual reports that are sent to me, and what people need to know. So yeah, so that's why we're doing this. That's a little insight into our strategy over the next 5 years. I'm going to stop talking. I would love your questions. So do pop them in the chat or turn on your microphone and camera. Let's have a chat. So having said I was going to stop talking, do continue writing your questions and send them to me. But while you're doing that, I think it's worth just kind of reflecting again on the fact that there are some kind of easy ways to kind of start down this road if it feels like action research is a step too far. So kind of doing surveys and then sharing the results with, you know, your student body, but also wider than that. Just telling us what you get up to would be amazing. So I think it was Tanya. Definitely want to hear more about the project you've been doing for your masters. That sounds great. Sharon's said, if we wrote up a report at the end of the project, where would it be shared to add to the body of evidence, and would HQ help us with this? Absolutely. So one of the things we would do is to also, so if you do the action research training, that also includes membership to Impact, which is the Chartered College of Teaching journal. So you can read lots of other research. So you can kind of acclimatise to how research can be written within education. We can also give you other resources to kind of that link to your research area. And Mira, who runs the course, she is the research lead at her school and editor of a research journal. And she is fantastic at supporting people with this. And it's not about there being one particular way or to write and one particular voice. It's about utilising your voice. But we would definitely support you with that. In terms of where could it be shared? So we could do our own journal. It's something that Mira is quite keen to do, so we could do that. We could also kind of build it into TSL maybe and do a bit of a TSL takeover. We could do a takeover on the website in terms of blogs, or we could do something a bit more informal, a bit more like this, where people have kind of 10 minutes to talk about their project and what happened, and we'll just invite other members along. I think there's lots of different ways to share it, and which one appeals to you will probably depend. So we might end up doing a couple, and then people can choose their own, the one that suits them best. So Tanya said she can see the benefit of research in our work. It makes you reflect on your practice. Absolutely. And I think, you know, I say this quite a lot, but we're too busy to do stuff that isn't impactful. Like, you're just too busy. So if you're going to do something, it's worth keeping an eye on it to see if it has the impact you wanted. If it doesn't, you can tweak it or you can drop it. But there's no point doing stuff for the sake of it or doing stuff that doesn't have the impact that you want. Rebecca said it also helped us teach students research skills. Absolutely. So one of the bits of feedback we got from last year was that it really made the librarian reflect on how she kind of taught, and also the emotional side of things that goes along with doing research, because it's not an easy process. It's not kind of A to B. There are kind of waivers where you have to like adjust your title, and then you can't find a bit of research that backs up that, and you know, so there is an emotional journey that goes with it. And one of our delegates from last time said that it really made her consider that much more in terms of how she was supporting students and delivering the skills. Sharon said the combination of formal and informal sharing sounds good. Brilliant. Tanya said her research question is promoting book awards in school libraries. Do book covers engage readers from marginalised groups? Oh, I love that. I love that. when you finish, please send it over. Let's share that with lots of people. I think that'll make really interesting. Maggie says she feels a little overwhelmed at the moment, but excited. Good. One of the main concerns has always been the tangle of ethics and use of student voice, especially as regards to sharing the research and also the student participation versus potential parent consent in terms of more formal research, or that is shared more widely. And that's completely valid. So the ethical side of things is also very important. That is, again, something that Mira, obviously, you know, she works in a school too. So she is used to dealing with that. And we have kind of the forms. So you don't have to kind of create your own form from scratch. We do the process properly, so students are protected. And there are lots of kind of different ways of collecting student voice, which means that they can be kind of, there are forms of doing it that protect them more and forms of doing it that protect them less. But also, you know, as much as we've highlighted in our strategy the fact we want to spotlight pupil voice, teacher voice or other support staff voice is also really important. And could be really important in terms of us unifying as one kind of educational body. So that is, you know, in terms of the ethics, we very much support with that. And, you know, we're very much, the pupils is always at the centre of what we do. So, you know, that's a key concern for us as well. So you wouldn't be on your own in that. I'm glad you're feeling excited. Are there any other questions? I can't see any more. Yeah. It feels good. Thank you, Tanya. That's very kind. I think it's also worth saying as well that one of the benefits of using someone like Mira, who is already kind of in place within the educational landscape. So she's worked extensively in not just in her school, but across schools and does training with other schools and other teachers. She also works extensively with Women Ed. And it means that she's very well placed to share the research that we come across and that we conduct and produce to an audience that it wouldn't get to necessarily if it was just us. So that's good. Rebecca says, thank you, Rachel. Rebecca says, joining and purchasing this training, how long does it run for? Good question. So the first session will happen in May, and then the other sessions will happen throughout next term, maybe go into spring, because it's about giving you the skills. We kind of try and time the sessions so that you get the information just before you need it. So there's tends to be a kind of slightly bigger gap between some of them so that you can actually do your project. But you're not left on your own. Like, we're always here to support, and those dates will kind of be worked out with the people who sign up to the session, so that hopefully it works for as many people as possible. All the sessions are also recorded, so if there is one that you can't make, you'll get the recording, and then, you know, either Mira or myself can meet up with you and just go through any questions that you have afterwards. Okay, so Chloe's said this has been very useful to start thinking about strategy and its benefits. Thank you, that's good. Maggie said, very important question. The session is up with the cost attached. So the cost is for the whole block. So it's £150 plus VAT for members and £200 plus VAT for non-members, and that is for all 6 sessions. You also get a research booklet that Mira creates for you, plus the chartered plus a year's membership to the Chartered College of Teaching to support you with that extra educational research element. So yeah, it is as well priced as we could do it. Sharon has said, can you give us an idea for settling on a question for your action research project so we can start on a project even if we can't join the course? Absolutely. So okay, so I always go to the practicalities first. So we're busy. So make it something that you're going to do anyway. If you do it as an add-on, it's probably not going to last the duration in terms of, other pressures will just overtake. So make it something that is either linked to your development plan or something that is super important, or something you've just got lots of questions about. It might just be something that you've not done before, but something that you're going to be able to prioritize. You always kind of want to record a bit of a baseline data. So before you do the project, what does it look like? Think quite carefully about what it is that the project actually wants to achieve. So what is the question you're asking? The question is really fundamental. If it's too broad, it's just going to become unwieldy. So try and narrow it down. Then do the project and then do some evaluation at the end. Yeah, that's the starting point I'd suggest. Yeah, obviously if you want to kind of discuss it further and kind of throw titles around and that sort of thing, then we can do that. Okay. Any more questions? So Rebecca said, if I wanted to do the actual action research next academic year, starting up timetabled project-based learning sessions for secondary year groups, and you've been okay to timetable, that's exciting. Would this be a good time to do the action research? So should I do the training next term? So it's not going to run each term next academic year, just because it is a more intensive course and also more costly. And obviously we can't run it if it doesn't cover its own costs. So we need to make sure that we're doing, we are doing that. So, and this, the sessions will be timed so that you can fit them in. But it might also be that actually looking at everything in terms of the timetabled project with all secondary year groups is just too big. So it might be that you can explore an element of that just to make it more manageable. And then that bit could be your action research project within the wider kind of within the wider context. So yeah, I would say sign up now if you could, because then also, as I said, once you've got the knowledge, how it's going to run, so you can then go off and run your own research as much as you want to. Thank you, Rebecca. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I'm going to assume that's it, although I will be here for a little bit longer. So if you do have a question, just pop it in the chat. Otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed the session and you've taken something from it. And as always, if you have any questions about anything that Isnay is doing or not doing, or anything you want to know, we are just here. So do just send us an email or give us a call. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been really nice chatting to you this afternoon.